stop. Before you do anything else today, I need you to see this number. Oil just hit $119 a barrel this morning. That is not a typo. That is the highest price since the 2022 energy crisis. And it happened in less than 72 hours. Here's what that number means for you, personally. If you filled up your tank last week, you paid around $3 a gallon. This week, $3.48. And by the end of the month, based on current futures, analysts are projecting $4.25 to $4.50 nationally. In California, you're already at $5.20. The average American household is going to spend an extra $2,512 this year, just on energy. That's not a recession statistic. That is your budget. So in the next 12 minutes, I'm going to break down exactly what caused this, where oil is going next, and the 3 specific moves I'm making with my own money right now. Let's get into it. Now I know what you're thinking. Oil spikes happen, they always come back down. I've seen 3 or 4 of these. Why is this one different? Here's why this one is different. Low, serious drop register here. It's not about a country cutting production. It's not about OPEC Plus playing games with quotas. This is about a physical choke point for 20% of the entire world's oil and natural gas supply being effectively closed. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. And right now, it is not functioning as a global transit route. We have a physical deficit of somewhere between 10 and 14 million barrels of oil per day. The global market only produces about 102 million barrels a day total. You do the math. Here is the sequence of events. On March 18th, Israel struck Iran's South Pars gas field. That facility accounts for roughly 80% of Iran's total gas output. Iran then fired missiles at Ras Laffan in Qatar, the single largest LNG export facility on the planet. Trump got on social media and essentially said, "Do not touch Qatar's LNG, or there will be consequences." His exact words were, quote, "I do not want to authorize this level of violence because of long-term implications." Now there is a theory floating around institutional trading desks and Reddit. Simultaneously, it's being called the taco trade. Trump, always chickens out. The bet is that the administration will de-escalate before the 2026 midterms, because $5 gas is a death sentence for incumbent politicians. We'll come back to that because it's actually important for your portfolio. So here's where it gets really interesting from a market's perspective, because the knee-jerk reaction is oil spike. Economy hurts. Fed cuts rates to stimulate. We've seen that movie before, except that is not what is happening this time. Jerome Powell just held rates at 3.5 to 3.75%. And the quote I keep coming back to is, the Fed cannot print oil. They have revised their 2026 inflation forecast upward to 2.7%. And the futures market has now shifted from pricing in multiple rate cuts to pricing in an 8% chance of an actual rate hike by year end. Now let's talk about what's happening in global markets, because this is the part I think is being massively underreported. Japan is down 3.4% today. Germany is down 2.8%. But here's the thing. US equities are remarkably resilient right now. The S&P 500 is basically flat on the week. And the reason is what's being called the Great Decoupling. Capital is fleeing Europe and Asia. It is seeking the safety of the dollar and US treasuries. America is, for maybe the first time in a generation, genuinely energy independent from the Middle East. The Permian Basin is producing, the Gulf of Mexico is producing. This is painful at the gas station, but from a pure capital market standpoint, the US is in a structurally different position than Europe and Asia right now. One more thing I want to flag before we get to the actionable stuff. Gold and silver are getting absolutely crushed right now. Gold is down 5.9%. Silver is down 8.2%. GDX, the gold miners ETF, is having one of its worst sessions in years. This is counterintuitive if you think of precious metals as a safe haven. What's happening is rising treasury yields are making cash and bonds more attractive than a non-yielding metal. Keep that in mind if you were thinking of rotating into gold right here. All right, let's get into the actual strategy, because this is the part that matters. There are 4 things I'm looking at right now. 2 things to potentially buy, 2 things to avoid, and 1 wild card that could change everything within the next 2 weeks. Number 1, energy stocks. The obvious winners here are Chevron and ExxonMobil. Both are surging. If oil stays above $100 for any extended period, the free cash flow these companies generate is extraordinary. I'm not saying chase them here after a 4% move, but if you believe this stays elevated for 60 to 90 days, and there is a reasonable case for that. The integrated majors are a logical hedge against your own gas bill. Number 2, what to avoid. I would be very careful with airlines and cruise operators right now. Delta, United, Carnival. These companies have massive fuel exposure. Every dollar increase in jet fuel hits their margins directly. I'm not saying short them, but if you own them and you're up on the position, this is a reasonable time to think about trimming. Number 3, the wild card. And this is important. The White House is actively considering 2 emergency measures. Number 1, unsanctioning roughly 140 million barrels of Iranian oil currently sitting in tankers around the world. Number 2, another release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. If either of those happens in the next 10 to 14 days, and the Tarco trade thesis is correct, oil could drop back to 90 to 95 very quickly. That would reverse a lot of this. So do not make highly leveraged bets on oil staying at 120. Number 4, and this is what I actually believe is the right move. For the vast majority of people watching this, it's boring. You've heard me say it 100 times. Dollar cost average into VOO or VTI. Don't stop. Don't pause. Don't wait for it to settle down. The S&P 500 has returned an average of 8.4% in the 12 months following external shock events. That's not me guessing. That's data from every major shock going back to the 1970s. And the one thing you can do that doesn't require any market prediction at all, cut spending. I know that sounds incredibly simple, but hear me out. The no-buy 2026 trend that's been going viral is actually a rational financial response to an energy shock. That extra $2,512 a year you're going to spend on gas, you can offset a significant chunk of it just by reducing discretionary spending. Cancel 1 subscription. Eat out 2 fewer times a month. That is real money that you're keeping in your own pocket, instead of sending to a gas station. A few rapid-fire things I want to make sure you have before we wrap up. The United Nations has put out an alert that 45 million people globally could face acute food insecurity if oil stays above $100 through the summer, because energy prices flow directly into food production costs. Fertilizer, transport, irrigation. This is not just a gas station problem. This is a global food system problem. On the corporate side, Honeywell and Micron have already issued warnings that the conflict will hurt Q1 revenue. That's significant because these are bellwether companies.
Expect more of these warnings in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
As CFOs update their guidance, here's the bottom line. 120 oil is painful. It is an inflation tax on every household in America. But it is not, and I want to be very clear, it is not a signal to panic, not a signal to sell everything, not a signal to make drastic changes to a long-term investment strategy. What it is a signal to pay attention, to understand what's driving it, to make small, rational adjustments. Trim the things that are now structurally disadvantaged. Continue the things that are structurally resilient. And don't stop dollar-cost averaging just because the news is scary. The news is almost always scary. That's literally the business model of news. I'll be monitoring this situation closely. The next major catalyst is going to be whether the White House pulls the trigger on that Iranian oil release. If they do, I'll put out an update immediately. If you want to stay ahead of this and not find out 3 days later after the market already moved, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I post within hours of any breaking macro event. And if you found this useful, share it with one person you know who needs to hear it. That's how we build something that actually helps people. Now that you understand why the market is doing this, the next question is, where am I personally putting my cash right now? I made a video breaking down my exact portfolio moves for 2026. It is right there. Watch that next.